Actually, I brought the quote. Woodward then wrote and said that Hayden, General Hayden, he's the guy that runs all our intelligence operations, then met with the Baker Commission, okay, in the White House. And here's what he said to them. The ability of the government to govern seems irreversible. The government, meaning the government of Iraq, Maliki, is unable to govern. We spend a lot of energy and treasure creating a government that is balanced, but it cannot function. Joe Biden has been saying that, the only Democrat, the only Republican, the only person saying, you can never govern this country from the center. Hear me now. Not in the lifetime of anyone in this audience will there be a government in Baghdad that has the confidence of the bulk of the Iraqi people that that country can be governed. That's why I've been pushing for the famous foreign policy expert named Les Gelb, the so-called Biden-Gelb plan for over a year, which is decentralize the government. Yeah. Do what we did in Bosnia, which I was deeply involved in. Separate the warring factions within regions. Give them control over the fabric of their daily lives, their own police forces, their own laws relating to marriage, divorce, etc., and have a limited central government that has control over the borders, currency, and the distribution of oil. And to do that now, folks, you have to bring in the international community because we have no credibility anymore. If it has a Made in America stamp on it, it's not going to go anywhere. And I've gone to the United Nations personally, as chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, met personally for over an hour with the permanent five, meaning China, Russia, England, France, and the United States, and proposed what I just said to you. And they all agreed they would be willing to convene an international conference to get a political settlement. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I'm wrong. Absent what I just said happening, we are going to see a civil war metastasize into the rest of the region. We're going to have to leave no matter what because I refuse to keep another American soldier in harm's way for no other purpose other than to keep things from getting worse. That is not something I can justify to the American people.
We've been listening to yourself and the other candidates, and they keep talking about that partition and the warring factions. When you talk about the partition, will the Iraqi people go for that?
Yes. Look, I have been there, Iraq and Afghanistan, 8 times. I literally know personally, not because I'm so important, I just go. I go on the ground. You want to know what's going on, you all know you got to go smell it, you got to taste it. Why are you here? You're here because you want to figure out what this guy Biden is. He's ready for prime time? You know, is he one of the guys we want to look at? Is he, you know, I mean, that you want to see it, right? Well, that's why I go to Iraq. And that's why I'm going back in the next couple of weeks to Iraq. Actually, I'm going back Labor Day to Iraq because that's the time Petraeus is going to make his decision. And I want to be on the ground and have my own analysis of what's going on. But why? The reason is I meet with each one of these leaders, the Sunni leaders, the Shia leaders. I've met with Barzani and Talabani and the Kurds. I've met with all these Sunni and Shia leaders. The answer is yes, they will accept it. Why? Because they know that none of them can run the deal. But here's the problem. In order to get the Sunnis to buy into this, you got to give them a piece of the oil. There's nothing in Anbar province. I've flown over it in a helicopter, almost the entirety of it. I've been shot at flying over. Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't think they need a guarantee of a piece of that oil revenue, you're making a big mistake. They're not going to buy into a government run by the Shia, 62% the Shia, with the Kurds and the Sunnis having all the oil. Conversely, how do you get the Shia to buy in? The Shia are ready to buy in if they get the same kind of autonomy the Kurds have in the north. And so there's a deal to be made. They all know that neither one of them can run the country absent continued long-standing bloodletting. But we have no imaginative diplomacy. Were I President of the United States, I believe in every fiber of my being. I could have ended this war 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Because what do you do? What's diplomacy about, folks? It's not about getting two people to hate each other and like each other. It's about finding the one thing the two people have in common and making that the central controlling element of the relationship. What they each have in common, Shia want more autonomy, the Sunnis want a piece of the oil. Makes sense. We could do it, but this president is not ready. They will accept it.
They will. Thanks. Hey, I forgot to do something when we first started, and it'll lead into my next question. In the event of a fire, we have an and we have two in the back. In regard to security and safety, in regard to security and safety, this week the Homeland Security Director said that he had a gut feeling that there'd be an attack. One word to describe that. Why would you make such a statement?
Because unlike the president, he read the intelligence reports. Really? Look, folks, most of the people in here, I suspect, are very politically active. In one campaign or another, Democrat, Republican, whoever you support. Some of you know I have a bad habit that I'm not going to change. Saying what I believe. Not a joke. Not always a virtue. Sometimes, you know, it gets me in trouble. But ladies and gentlemen, there's some things worth losing elections over. There's some things worth losing over. And what is worth losing over is communicating to the American public the truth about our national security. I have been saying, and I've brought along with me, I hope that my staff hasn't, a speech speaking at Drake Law School. I spoke at Drake Law School several months ago, laying out my position on national security and civil rights and civil liberties. There's copies of it. Ask my staff, do we have copies of it with us? There's copies in the back at the exits. And here's the generic point I want to make. I said, as some of you may remember on Meet the Press over a year and a half ago, we're creating more terrorists than we're destroying. You've heard me say that. Everybody said, how can you say that? Isn't that inflammatory? Well, I could not say what was said this February by the National Intelligence Estimate. That's every security agency in the United States government which comes out with a consensus report. They said, not Joe Biden, they said, we've created more terrorists than we have destroyed or disrupted. I've also said, in the last debate, you remember, they asked us all, are we safer than we were before? And the answer I gave, which got me in trouble, quote unquote, was saying, no, we're not. And the reason we're not is Al-Qaeda is as strong or stronger than it was pre-9/11. And they said, how can you say that? What did you read yesterday in the newspaper? What did you read of the intel, not Joe Biden, Democrat, Chairman of Foreign Relations Committee? What did you read yesterday in every major paper in America? The American intelligence community gave a report to the President of the United States. We are in a position where Al-Qaeda is as strong or stronger than 9/11. Why? Because this president and this administration and the Republican candidate can hardly wait to debate some of these guys. Really?
We'll touch on that in a minute.
They have absolutely mishandled the single most important function and responsibility of this administration: to deal with the rise of radical fundamentalism and terrorist organizations. Osama bin Laden is alive and well. They are planning. They are stronger in Western Pakistan than they have ever been. Afghanistan is in jeopardy. Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, they have been irresponsible. And lastly, all of the Homeland Security, what has been done? Virtually nothing of the 9/11 Commission report has been implemented. I've laid out how to come up with the $42 billion